Imagine a farmer standing in his field in Punjab, checking crop prices on his phone, and at the same moment, thousands of kilometers away in Washington, a line in a trade document is being rewritten. That single line decides whether American soy and cotton enter Indian market in a cheaper way, and also whether Indian rice, tea and jewelry reach the US market more easily, and also whether India's oil choices are still based on its own interest. Markets are definitely celebrating this India-US trade deal, but farmers are protesting, the opposition is questioning, and strategists are warning here. So today, we are here to ask a very simple but uncomfortable question. Is this trade deal a win for India, or are there actually some hidden costs involved? Hello everyone, welcome to Vajiram and Ravi's Flash News. My name is Shubhangi Singh, and in today's discussions, we will be looking into some important questions around India-US trade deal. So when we are talking about this particular trade deal, we have already understood it in detail, and we understand that this is an interim framework. It also comes up with certain prospects where US has released India map, which includes the region of Gilgit-Baltistan and also Aksai Chin, which marks a diplomatic gain for India. But a lot is present in the hindsight, in the hidden side, which we need to see through and which is being brought in front of us, where farmer outfits are slamming this trade deal, because there are certain clauses where this not seems very favorable for such a sensitive sector as agriculture. What about strategic autonomy that we have been talking all these years since we have been buying Russian oil? Have we given up on that? So a lot of things are going around it. So we will be starting with understanding that what exactly has been present in the interim trade deal between India and US. This will also give us an insight into that why are we talking about it being asymmetrical. So when we are talking about this trade deal has definitely brought in to lower the tariff and figure out a way that how India and US can sit together in terms of trade and cooperate with each other, especially in such a globally chaotic time. So in this context, what India has got is, India has got that 55% of Indian exports. Let's just say whatever India sends to US in form of exports, that means 55% of that good and service, they will be facing lower tariffs, and that tariff has slashed from 50% to 18%. You have to keep an eye on the fact that it is only for 55%. However, if you look into what India has committed for US, is the fact that we will also be reducing tariffs, but it will be on all US industrial goods and selected agricultural products as well. Another key factor that should draw our attention here is that India has said that we intend to purchase $5 billion worth of US goods over 5 years. That means we are going to be heavily dependent in terms of import towards US as well. And amidst this, there has been this conversation where we have committed also in reduction of purchase of Russian crude oil. So this seems like that this deal is coming amidst a global supply chain realignment that was being brokered and propagated by US, and it is definitely a US strategic outreach to India, where India has been signing free trade agreements and US did not want to be left out, but US seems like decided it to keep it most often in their favor. And that is why the important question that is this deal asymmetrical with special reference to India, this question is coming up again and again. So for that, the numbers that we were just talking, they will become a very good platform to start for looking answer to this particular question. Because when we are looking at India's tariff concession on one side, they are broad-based and they are present across the sector, including industrial as well as agriculture, for US. But when we look on the other side, that what US is offering, US is giving only access to 55% of Indian exports, and that too still at 18% tariff. Yes, it does place India at a competition level play field in terms of competition with other Asian peers, be it South Korea and others, but at the same time, this is relatively high tariff. We can't ignore that. And given India's position, global strategists and global research initiatives, they are already labeling it uneven and asymmetrical, that too more favoring towards US. So as a consequence, what we are seeing that yes, we might be getting some export gains, that means there's some partial export gains, but the bargaining optics, especially for India, is looking very weak. And we need to understand that in further detail. Now we will be moving to more dimensions related to it to understand that why we are saying that India has been seen on the weaker side of bargaining and negotiations in this particular trade deal. So when we are looking at this, we need to start with the first dimension, that we will speak for strategic autonomy. So since 2022, that means the start of Russia-Ukraine war, India has been a regular purchaser of Russian crude oil, which has been a big contention point not just for Europe but also NATO and European Union. But in this context, India has re-emphasized again and again that this is about their economy, it is about their strategic interest, and they are not going to compromise on that. But when this trade deal came in, this was a claim by President Donald Trump that India has agreed to stop buying Russian oil. However, as of now, joint statement has not mentioned anything of this regard, any such commitment from India's end. So that seems like a relief point, but for how long we do not know. Another component, if we look at the narrative being set from US's end, it is saying that we are monitoring India's Russian oil import, all that is happening directly and indirectly as well, and they have also said that we might reimpose the 25% punitive tariff as a punishment that was placed for buying Russian oil. But at the same time, India has said that oil imports have been commercial decisions of private refineries. At the state level, we are not doing this, and trade deal which has been signed, they do not dictate any sourcing. Furthermore, Russia has also confirmed that there is no official intimation from India. So when there has been a criticism for this trade deal that we are compromising on strategic autonomy, as of now this does not look like this. And as of now, if we are worried that trade is being linked to foreign policy compliance, it is not there. And there is a question of potential erosion of strategic autonomy, which is still not confirmed, because as I said, the joint statement does not mention any such commitment as of now. Yes, this has been aired, but you have to remember this has been aired only from one particular source and end. There is no official confirmation from any other end at all. Now, another component that we need to understand in detail and with clarity with regards to this particular trade deal, and which is in the highest highlight as of now, is the farmers' protest, that why farmers are protesting against this deal. Now, if we talk about this opposition, it is coming from the union of Sanyukt Kisan Morcha, and what is their fear? Their fear is that there will be price undercutting. Why there will be undercutting? Because when we are talking about US farm imports, they are heavily mechanized, they are subsidized, and they are at the industrial level. That means their prices are lesser, and if the cheaper farm imports are coming from US, then the prices present in India, they will also be reduced. Furthermore, this fear is also rooted around not just the price factor, but also the clarity which lacks as of now, because there has been no clear list additional agricultural products which have been put under tariff cuts. So we don't know that which tariff product is going which agricultural product would be placed in the tariff cut so that farmers can prepare accordingly. And what does this lead to? This particular thing leads to risk of income volatility. They don't know when their income might get reduced. There is this risk of market oversupply. Indian domestic market present with supply, US farm imports more supply. Oversupply means extremely reduced prices. That means farmers might not be able to make what they are putting in terms of production. And this also has the risk of repeat of farmer protests that we saw back when three farmer laws were brought in. So there is a huge risk that is present in front of us, and we have to understand that it is not just that market celebrates this particular trade deal, that the domestic sectors are equally benefited, and if we do not understand the risk around it, there are already very clear warnings of intense domestic backlash. And this might lead to a consequence where agriculture will become the weakest link in India's trade policy, where agriculture should have been the strongest link, the most protected one. Now, this is the second dimension that has been drawing a lot of flake here. So, we have a fair clarity on that. But another important dimension associated with agriculture itself, to understand in detail, we have to go into understanding that what are the key agricultural commodities which are lying at risk. When we are talking about key agricultural commodities, the first one we have is DDGS, that is distilled dried grains with solubles. Now, if we see increased US imports, yes, there will be a benefit to the poultry sector because this is used for feed. 60 to 70% of the cost. This is used for feed, which is 60 to 70% of the cost in this particular sector. But this will directly harm the oil seed farmers because they will have lower oil meal demand. There will be effect on oil seeds and especially soybean, because when we are talking about soy meal, price pressure and the fear of undercutting is present here. Farmers are gradually shifting away from oil seeds, which is against the policy that is being propagated at the central level. And we also have ethanol sector, which is already stressed after achieving 20% blending. If we get oversupply in terms of DDGS, that reduces ethanol plant revenues when we are pushing for more ethanol production, because that aligns with our green goals. So what we get to see, that the gains are concentrated in one industry, that is poultry, but losses are present across sectors, be it ethanol or be it oil seeds. So farmers are going to take the hit and one particular sector will be only benefited. Now, this is just one case study, this is just one example present in front of us. There are other agricultural commodities which might be in the similar problem, and they need to be seen with clearer lens to have a clarity on that. So the question is, have there been enough safeguards? Have these particular agricultural commodities not thought through by the government? And if safeguards have been placed, what are those safeguards? So when we are talking about safeguards, as we say that the question is, are the safeguards enough? But let us look into what have been the safeguards, because when we are talking about soybean, they are duty free only under tariff rate quota. There has been a quota which has been fixed. If we are talking about cotton, duty free imports, they have been limited to extra long staple cotton, only one category. That means India, which has been structurally dependent on import for extra long staple, that is where we have given duty free import. Others are still in the same place. If we talk about fruits such as apples, there has been a concessional duty plus minimum import price that has been fixed here. When we are talking about dry fruits, there we get to see there has been a rising demand and the domestic output is limited. That's why there is space and the fear of oversupply gets off here, and there will be minimal farmer impact. And government has assured that the most sensitive sectors such as dairy, such as GM crops, and meat and poultry, no concessions have been there. So, on the brighter side, safeguards do exist, government has thought about it, but we have to make sure that the enforcement is credible, and that is what will limit the negative consequences on our farmers if they arise in certain contexts. Now, all in all, who gains from this trade deal? We cannot say agriculture does not, because when we are talking about export winners, we do have tea, coffee, spices and fruits, which will have a wider access in terms of exports. We have rice, basmati and non-basmati, where US duty has been cut to 18%. Industry will also be benefited, especially gems and jewelry, textiles and leathers. And there are certain strategic sectors which will have the technological advantage as well, such as aircraft, energy and data centers. So here we have to hinge upon the prospect that high value agriculture as well as manufacturing will benefit, but this is also hinged upon if the quality and the logistics improve. And if we want to actually have the benefit, we have to address the challenges. On this note, food for thought, something that you can prepare for your answers. What are the challenges that you think India will face in order to get the best out of this trade deal? Now, on this note, I'll be addressing the last component here, because that is another question that has been raised about this deal, that India has promised $500 billion US worth of import. That means India would have to double US imports every year. But that will be dependent on private sector and the decisions along with it. But we cannot deny the risk that it will increase the import bill. There will be pressure on the trade surplus that we enjoy with US, and US does not like that trade surplus, and external balance would also stress the given situation. Now, government does have a particular view on that side, but what it will turn out, that is something time will tell. How strategic and deliverable this trade deal is, and what are the opportunities that will be delivered, that is still to be seen. Let me know your thoughts on this, how symmetrical or asymmetrical you think that this particular trade deal is. I'll be leaving you here with a practice question. Let me know the answer of this particular question in the comment section. That was all from my side. Thank you so much.